Welcome back to another episode of Picking Up the Pixels RPG Love. I'm your host, Boston. Joining me as always is Musum.
Hello.
And Mina.
Hi.
Patreon.com/E1M1, the ones are numbers. All the early access, behind the scenes, cool stuff. For the recommended tier is $5 a month, but you can pay less, because things are a little tight right now. More if you got a little extra scratch. And if you're not a patron, that's cool too. All the stuff will end up on all the public feeds at some point. Let's get into what you've been playing this past month, Musum.
Well, I guess I'll start out with a game that I have a really hard time imagining another game topping for my favorite this year, which is the Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Oh, yeah.
I am absolutely in love with this game. I did not anticipate loving this game as much as I have. In a way, it's not for new Final Fantasy VII players. I almost feel like it's more for everyone else who played it previously.
I agree with that because I have met some people who have no Final Fantasy VII experience, and they were kind of jumping into this as kind of like, this is the RPG that everyone says is the greatest RPG of all time. They've jumped into it, and they have been bounced off of it pretty hard.
Yeah, it's like, did you play Crisis Core and Dirge of Cerberus? Because there's some homework.
Well, and even, like, I don't necessarily know that you need those.
Stuff.
Yeah.
I think it's... I've been trying to think of a way to say this non-spoilery, and I don't know, like, I want to make a comparison to a certain book series, but that would spoil it, absolutely. Let's just say that they make revisions to the original Final Fantasy VII timeline and story,
sure,
but they do it in a way while acknowledging the original way they did it. And a lot of the game is conversation about whether to change it or whether not to change it while, making actual characters out of, like, Biggs, Wedge, and Jesse.
Yeah. Jesse's great, by the way.
Yeah. Like, they had one girl show up that, I swear I just thought was Yuffie in disguise. And then they said her dad was someone from Midgar. I'm like, well, maybe it's not Yuffie. And then I Googled it, and it turns out there was some Final Fantasy VII, like, book in Japan, and this was, like, the protagonist from the book.
Oh, interesting.
So I'm not familiar with that at all. I think it was a book. It might have been a comic. It was something that was not a movie or video game.
Right, it was never brought over here.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's, I feel like it's a love letter to us. So, like, it's simultaneously giving you an entirely new play experience and, in a way, a new story. You still feel nostalgia, like, every other step of the way. Like, I can't describe, like, when you're... Well, I can describe, I guess. Like, you'll be walking through a dungeon that you'll be like, yeah, this is kind of the aesthetic of the original. That's cool. Oh, I wonder, there used to be a materia hidden over here. I wonder if it is. There's a material over there. Like, it's probably not the same one, but they just have loads of cool things like that, and cool nods and cool exploration of areas that you didn't previously get.
Yeah, like the furthest I've made it, so this isn't to spoil anything. I want to sort of reference it in the regards to the original. I just fought Airbuster, and I just fell through the roof of Aerith's church and sort of did that encounter. Now, all of that stuff is 100% different, other than you fight Airbuster and you fall through the church, which all of the, like we were talking about before, it very much is like the Cliff's Notes are there. You run through the major story beats that happened in the original game, but there's like hours of additional fantastic stuff put in between each one of these things, and it doesn't... I know there's some pushback from some people about side quests that, they feel like padding and whatever. I haven't minded them so far, but all of the additional story stuff and dungeon stuff they've been adding in between so far has felt really, really great.
So I haven't played it, but I've talked to 4 people who have beaten it.
Okay.
And one of them is like an old time Final Fantasy VII fan, and he had opinions, and the other 3 had never played Final Fantasy VII. They hadn't even played a Final Fantasy besides 15. So
okay.
We're talking about people who are pretty new to Final Fantasy in general. The 3 who had never played it had a lot of pacing problems and a lot of lack of explanation or story guidance on the story didn't smooth out, or there was just there were things that they pointed out as this didn't make sense. I didn't understand what was going on
Interesting.
here. And so they kept coming back to me and they'd be like, hey, what's going on with blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, there shouldn't be any blah, blah, blah.
Right, that comes way later.
What are you talking about?
That's a Dirge of Cerberus thing.
They're like, this happened, but there was no explanation for it. So I'm just kind of wondering what's going on with this thing.
Yeah.
And just and the thing that I found that the people who had never played 7 were very confused by a lot of things where, I'm guessing, the veteran 7 players, just, information kind of just fills in the holes. You're like, oh, I understand because this is a character that's going to be blah, and you just, that information is just going, right in and plug in holes for you. Whereas, a new player is just kind of this has been introduced and nothing happens to it by the end of the game.
Right, a lot of stuff is happening.
Right.
Interesting.
And so, and the other thing that they had a problem with, and I mean, I can understand this, was that they said that the game just kind of stops. It's just stops. There's nothing to it, and it just ends.
Sure.
And they feel they feel like that was such a letdown. And because they knew that it was supposed to this is a 3-part game, but there was no moment that there wasn't the first act boss sort of feeling didn't feel like you hit it, or there wasn't any sort of emotional clinch or anything. They just kind of felt you're going at a pace, and all of a sudden it's just nothing.
It was a whole bunch of build up to just the game's credits.
To nothing, right?
Okay,
and,
interesting.
And they were let down by it, and I was like, well, I mean, this is just part 1 of whatever,
right.
And they're like, yeah, but that doesn't mean that the game just needs to drop you like that without giving you anything. If you're going to add extra content, why not add an extra content to make build up to an Act 1 boss or something, where you just get that big moment and you
or at
feel
least
satisfied.
Next week on Final Fantasy VII.
Something. But they said it just felt it felt immediately you're playing the game, you're having a good time, and all of a sudden the controllers just ripped out of your hands. There wasn't anything that felt like an ending there, or
that's interesting.
A first act ending.
And
that was the complaint with the new Final Fantasy VII players said this, where they were just I was like, well, of course it's just part 1, and they're but I don't want to play another game like this if it's going to do that to me. They were this is kind of unacceptable to me, where it's just kind of you don't just rip the game and end it like that. And so they were just kind of I don't want to play anymore if they're going to keep doing that to me, where it's just yanking my chain.
So
I was just kind of
I think if I word this carefully, I can say it to where it won't spoil anything, but it may communicate part of their confusion. So I'm going to attempt this.
Okay.
The end climax of the game is effectively the climax of the game is the battle between previous Final Fantasy VII expectations and Square wanting to do something new. It is a literal battle between that.
yeah.
I am kind of, I guess I just can't put myself in the shoes of someone who hasn't played Final Fantasy VII before, but the last 2 boss battles are the most epic boss battles in the entire game, so I have a hard time imagining it having that feeling for a new player, just because one of them you were fighting a boss that is taller than Midgar. It is not a boss that is in the original Final Fantasy VII either, and then you fight another boss after that, and I don't both of those battles are pretty epic. So I guess I have a hard time.
They did not. They did. Well, I guess the thing is like they felt like the story was building up a different villain.
Oh, interesting.
And nothing happened with that. The whole story kind of just like built towards one direction and then just went like
you know what?
Kuja's nobody. Kuja's nobody. So like you got to fight this guy, and then like they were just kind of like, what is like? So are we going to do the thing? Nothing happens.
So this is
like it drops off.
This is the President's Shinra deal that we probably all knew would be the issue going in, right?
Oh, right, because that was the problem in 7, where it's like, man, this dude's real bad. He's killing the planet, and the game's like, that guy, pfft, whatever.
So I guess like for them, they've got like this feeling of the way the story is shaping, and then it just like
that makes sense.
Doesn't do anything, and so like it doesn't matter how the bosses were to them. It was just that the emotional connection to where they were going with the story was completely dropped, and then the story just kind of ends where they were expecting more out of it,
right? And
like nothing happens, and then they were just kind of like, this is the greatest RPG of all time, this is what you guys say is the greatest RPG.
Yeah. Like, chapter 1
part of it.
Yeah.
And they're like but it didn't build to anything, like nothing, like I'm not appetized for another round.
I think that's the hardest part about splitting this game into multiple parts is it is building to something. It's just you don't have the other discs, quote unquote.
Right, like, well, I guess like the thing is like, imagine if we were playing, because one of my friends ended up playing Persona 5 after this and had a way better time going into it. But he was like,
I mean, that one's done too, so.
Imagine if you were playing Persona 5 and you get to the end of Madarame's palace, and it just like drops.
See you next time.
see you next time.
Right.
He's like, imagine if that happened to you and you were just kind of like,
yeah.
Okay.
That's really interesting, because I think
it doesn't feel good.
Yeah. Number one, I really need to finish this game. But I think that's going to be the problem that Square has with new players to Final Fantasy VII until this thing is done, if it is ever finished, is that either you quote-unquote do the homework and you play Final Fantasy VII, which is like less than $10 on literally every platform, and it's a solid version. You got the cheats, you got the triple speed, like you have everything.
Yeah.
Or I think you try to help the new fan base that's playing Remake for the first time, and then whatever the other two are going to be called, that try to help their expectations of, I know we're building something and I know we're just getting started and the rest isn't here, but it will be coming. Like we're working towards something. And you got to go along for the ride.
Gosh, but I will say that for a lot of the new 7 fans that I've talked to, they haven't, so I've heard many kinds of complaints about the game, and some of them are just kind of like, whatever, like I don't, okay, you're just complaining to complain.
Yeah.
I mean, like I don't know how to put that into other words, but then like I've heard like complaints from the newer fans, and they have pretty valid complaints or concerns as they've been playing it, where they're just like, the game's not explaining things, or it's not being told in a way that makes sense to a new fan, and they're just like, it seems like the game's just kind of like, all about this thing.
Well, and there've been some like flashes as I've been playing through it where it's like, oh, they're teasing this thing, okay, like the big story event in,
I mean, that's cool for veterans,
and there's
but
like
for a new player, they're like, well, what's this about, like,
right, like,
and then the story element doesn't carry on.
One of the first shots in the game, there's like a black feather floating down from the sky, and it's like, oh, all right, well, yeah, like we're opening with a hot Final Fantasy VII banger here, and everyone else is like, why's the feather there? Like, what's going on here?
What's going on? I don't understand. So like, the thing is like the amount of like all those nice little Easter eggs for the old fans are like red herrings and everything for the story, like, because it's just making all the new fans kind of go like, I don't understand, like, what is going on? Like, and everyone seems hyped about these things, but they're just being kind of like, they're like, I feel nothing towards these moments because it's not telling me anything. I'm just being constantly thrown like information, and like the flashbacks or something, or or something. My friend was just like, I don't understand what is going on with everything, and they don't make attempts to explain a lot of this.
Yeah, I mean, even early on in the game, they have pulled forward some of the flashbacks from Calm.
Yeah, right.
So we were talking about it before we started the show, that I think all of us are hopeful that they'll do a Kingdom Hearts complete package at some point where it's however many volumes of Final Fantasy VII there is going to be. Once it gets finished on PS5 or Series X, fingers crossed, they'll just bundle all that together, and that'll be, hey, if you wanted to play Final Fantasy VII and you don't want to play the old one, here is the complete brand new one, and it's all in one package.
I kind of advised a couple of people who were just not having a good time with it. I was like, maybe do what I'm doing, which is just hold off for the whole thing. Like, I know you're going to have to wait for a long time, but they're just like, I don't want to play that old one, because they were like, I don't like how it looks. I'm like, that's fair. Like, I get it.
You should, because it's still a solid game. Right. I don't think it's the best RPG of all time, but it's good. I mean,
a lot of people are just kind of like, I don't want to play it anymore. It's too... So I'm just like, okay, then I advise hold off until the whole thing comes out, and then you can like consume the whole thing from front to back without feeling like you need to constantly go to a wiki or to somebody who's played it to get like backfilled information or whatever, and
or just like go along for the ride. Like, stuff's gonna get confusing and not explained, but I mean, just kind of roll with it.
I mean, that's JRPGs in general, and like at the end, I thought they did a fantastic job of saying this is what all this stuff was about, like without explaining every single little, like, I think obviously like the amount, like, I am not I do not know all the Final Fantasy VII references. Like, if there were Cerberus references in there, they went right over my head. I own that game, haven't played it in years. My understanding was the storyline in that was mostly invalidated by Advent Children.
I think so, yeah.
So I don't know. But like Final Fantasy VII Remake is probably, like, right now, I was trying to avoid saying it on this podcast, but the amount of, I want to say it, I guess I'm just going to say it now. I think this is one of my favorite games of all time.
That's awesome.
That may change, over the next year, but between the gameplay and the score and the graphics and kind of the meta commentary that they have going on between the original Final Fantasy and expectations to remake that scene by scene versus making an entirely new experience,
right.
I thought are some of the ballsiest things you can put in a game. And they explained, like, at the end, kind of what those scenes and battles were about. Like, even as a veteran player, as you go through the game, when the phantoms go up, like, those were not in the original game. You don't know what those are. You don't know what they're doing. You don't know what the purpose is. And I feel like they explain that very well.
So I won't say what things they've told me, like my because I feel like it's spoilers.
Yeah.
Like, talking about these, like, this is too new of a game, but like they explained, well, they've been asking me stuff about like what happened, like they didn't understand what this meant or that meant or what's this all about, and like they all had valid questions. I will say, like I don't understand, like, what is this element, or who is this person, why should I care, because they didn't really say anything. They just dropped this information, kind of moved on.
Sure.
And I was like, I get why they were introduced in the game, because I was like, that's awesome for like the fans of 7. Like, they're like, oh cool, it's this thing. But like for them, they're just like, they introduce this thing and then they move on past it without really saying anything else about it. And you're right, Boston. They do this in JRPGs where they're just kind of like, ooh, there's smoke mirrors and you don't understand stuff. But like in typical JRPGs, it's all in one game, so you get it all explained.
Sure.
So that way, by the end of the game, you should have all that knowledge of like all the smoke and mirrors. Because like in like for Persona 5, an example, there's moments where they don't tell you what's going on, or they're like, who's this mysterious fellow or whatever that's doing something in like this place or whatever, and like you're kind of like, well, who is that person? And you go on throughout the game, and then eventually that gets revealed to you, and like all that information backfills into your questions. Whereas like with my friends, when they finished the game, 7 remake or whatever, they were just like, I am with an armful of questions and no answers at the moment. And so,
maybe honestly, that may be one of the most authentic Final Fantasy VII experiences, because none of us knew what the hell happened at the end of the original Final Fantasy VII. You could probably apply that to a degree to Final Fantasy VIII. Like, I think there's plenty of like 100-hour JRPGs, especially back in like the 90s and early aughts, that have very ambiguous endings or elements that they don't explain at all.
Well, and I think it might be serve them better to think about this less like a Persona 5 or a Final Fantasy 7 and more like a Trails of Cold Steel 1, 2, 3, 4, where it's like you're going to get some stuff resolved in the first one, but there's this overarching story that's going to carry on between 1 to 2, 2 to 3, and so on. So it's you're getting the first part of the story, and there's going to be overarching stuff that continues throughout the series.
One of my friends did bring up a trilogy series and tried to compare the two, because he felt like because that was the way he brought up .hack GU or .hack whatever what it was.
Yeah.
And he explained how like that game felt complete from front to back the whole way through. Like there was still like the whole like the bigger story that was unanswered, but he felt like for the first game or whatever, and he explained, and I'm not going to say all the spoilers of that game, but he was just like, you get introduced to the antagonist, and like everything feels like it belongs in a single story. So once you finished it, you're like, yeah, I finished, the story. It didn't finish the ultimate story, which is to, bring my friend back from being in a coma or whatever. We're going to, I'm sure it was a coma thing. Or
Probably.
whatever,
some cyber coma.
Some cyber coma. They got trapped in the game or whatever. But anyways, like he explained, like that felt complete, whereas this one feels like it feels like they chopped off part of the game.
Yeah,
because that's what it is, though, because it's like this wasn't made as a trilogy to begin with, or whatever it is,
right?
However long, how many games this is going to be. So
I really need to finish.
This is uncharted ground to me. Like I don't know of very many games. Like, is there a game out there that's been like split up after it's been made whole? Like a game that like.
This doesn't answer your question, but straight up, if they'd never made a sequel to this, I would be perfectly happy. Like, I think...
Interesting.
I think the ending ties it in such a way... It's like the ending of the movie A Quiet Place. If you've ever seen that. Because it has a non-ending, but it has a non-ending that makes you cheer. And now, granted, the sequel's going to come out and ruin that, or maybe it already did come out and ruin that. I don't know.
Right.
But I don't know if another video game has done this either, but I think they have. Like, that sucks that these new players that are having this experience. I guess I was.
This isn't just the only 3 people
in a bubble of just people who were excited and just flabbergasted by how good this game was. Right.
Well, they said the graphics were amazing, but they were just kind of like, but the story wasn't holding up to like what they had expected, because their expectations are this should be the greatest RPG of all time. Like that's their expectations.
I mean, that's
like, no 7 like isn't. That. So
yeah,
well, that's like the whole internet has been saying that for generations. So let's
25 years. Yeah,
like, it's been going on and on. Greatest RPG.
Right.
You look at a
Final
top
Fantasy
10
VI,
list.
right?
Seven's gonna be number 1 on like everybody's JRPG top list, whatever, on the internet. So like they went into this with the highest expectations you could ever have for an RPG, if I'm gonna be honest.
And that's part of the reason why I want to finish it, is because there's so many people that are writing articles on video game sites saying like, this is my first time playing Final Fantasy VII, and here's all the problems I've had with it. I don't want to read those yet, because most of them are like, I'm going to spoil everything in this game. It's like, oh, well, okay.
Yeah,
but
don't.
I mean, it's still a game made by hundreds of people. It's not perfect by any means.
Right.
And that's the hard part about being a Final Fantasy VII thing, is that even if you haven't played the original, it you have to aggressively manage your expectations. And I'm not saying that people who are going into it thinking that 7 is the best RPG of all time without playing it are wrong. They're not, because, Mina, you're right. The internet won't shut up about Final Fantasy VII for the last 25 years. And it's hard not to go into this game thinking,
kind of impossible.
It's the new version of the best RPG of all time. It has to be incredible. And it's hard to not temper your expectations, but
right.
It has been really interesting to hear without them being on the show, to hear what new Final Fantasy VII players are experiencing. It's a bummer that they didn't get the experience that they were looking forward to, but
I mean, there's like little things I could bring up, but it's just kind of like that might be just their own personal preference on an RPG that they didn't like.
And I especially don't want to spoil really anything for this for new players, or for anybody, because it's. We talked about the demo when the demo came out, that the ending of the demo, the ending of the bombing mission, already sort of took a left turn from where Final Fantasy VII started.
Right.
And then immediately the game just goes off on its own direction. There's, like we said, there's still the tentpole stuff. The important stuff still happens, but there's so much different stuff, and there's so much additional stuff that I really don't want to spoil anything. But I'm glad you've had a lot of fun with it. It sounds like it has rocketed to the number 1 slot for your
I kind of thought I would just get on here and we would just celebrate it, but I guess it's not going to be one of those games.
I need to finish it because I'm really looking forward to it, and I feel like we're rapidly approaching that point where just open spoilers are going to be on Twitter, so I'd like to finish it before someone's just like, the ending of Final Fantasy VII. I just drew some art about it. And it's like, great. Right. Oh, thanks, I guess.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
I kind of know way too much about it despite not playing it. Because I've 3 specific friends that have just been like asking me questions nonstop.
What's this spoiler thing? That's like, okay.
It's like okay.
Right.
And
well,
so I didn't play it. I don't plan on playing until the whole complete thing comes out, because I'm gonna go into this I'm just gonna marathon the whole thing from front to back whenever it comes out. And maybe I'll have a different experience than everybody else about it, because I didn't play it at all until the whole thing in 10 years.
Yeah. So I have a prediction. Prediction. If this game goes beyond 2 games, it will never finish coming out.
Probably. I could see them maybe finishing 3, but that third one is going to be a trial.
Yeah, like part of me even want, like, they got good sales on this one, so I guess that'll be encouragement to go on with the second one. I think they could, because I've been playing the original Final Fantasy VII as well. Like, I was going to bring that up on here. And like the most exciting part of the original Final Fantasy VII is you go through Midgar and then you get out, and then you see so much more to do. And then you go and do that
there's
stuff,
still a world map.
Like, honestly, like the rest of the game, I don't know is that enthralling, right? Like, I don't like Sephiroth is a cool villain that is also kind of corny.
And like the rest of the game is just you chasing him down for reasons, because Cloud wants to.
Yeah. I mean, there are. Well, I guess that's a spoiler, so I won't say it. But like, it's. I feel like they could shove the whole next game into a second game, but part of me also thinks they're never going to make this game into an open world.
That's my concern too. Yeah.
And I think that's very likely, especially with how the original Final Fantasy VII was. Like, it's very structured and very linear, but you're still on an open world map. And if there's no way they're going to make a modern game where, you have the Sand Rover thing, so now you can only drive through like shallow riverbeds, and now you have a plane, but the plane doesn't fly. And it can
the busted plane. Yeah. Now you have a submarine.
Like.
I agree. Yeah.
So I don't know what they'll do there. From hearing everything you've said, Mina, I don't know that gosh, it's such a jerk thing for me to say, but I guess this game is only for old fans because it's, in a way, it's really just a companion piece to the original.
Yeah.
Like, it is, so much of it is...
It does need the original's help. The more I've talked to my friends about it, the more I'm just kind of like, just maybe watch a Let's Play of the original, I guess.
Sure. If you don't want to play it.
I don't know what to say, because like the stuff that you need is just, you need it all from the original.
Yeah.
Well, and
there's stuff that I didn't know that, like you said, could be from like the book or whatever, but like I was just like, I have no idea what that is, and they're like, okay, so whatever that is, I guess, is not important.
Well,
and they made it seem important.
I think that's the great part about Square not being precious about their older games, is that like 7, 8, and 9 all have God mode, infinite limit breaks, infinite money, triple battle speed. Like, you can just fly through that game with no problem. I think that's incredible, especially for someone who might be thinking like, well, I enjoyed Remake, and I had questions or I had difficulties with it. Maybe I'll just spend like 10 hours blowing through Final Fantasy VII on my Switch, just one-shotting everything in the game just to kind of get the background stuff or the 7 story stuff. I think that's cool of Square, a company that has been a little too precious about some of their games in the past.
Well, and I guess that's the other thing I really love about this game is when you have even just a little bit of prior FF7 experience with this, like the game like really presents itself, especially once it gives you all the pieces of the story, as almost this like weird artistic essay on like should we make something new that's exactly like the old thing or not, and like should we change these things, and can we find more different meaning by changing it while still respecting the source material. And like this game very much rides that fine line and has that discussion inside of it. And
for the game to ask itself that question is incredible.
Yeah. And like it doesn't come right out and say like have that discussion till near the end, but even then I think for the most part like it does an exemplary job of having it, and it's insane that it even considered like having that conversation on screen. But
I think it's even insane that Square did more than just remake the Midgar section from 7. Like they could have put out a 5-hour $60 RPG that is literally just shot for shot Final Fantasy VII's Midgar scene, and they changed nothing and just made it look as good as it does, and everyone would be like, yep, this is great, Final Fantasy VII's great. I wouldn't have faulted them, but the product they put out is ambitious.
Yeah. And like there are plenty of things I can ding it on. Like the motorcycle chase sequences kind of suck. Like
that new motorcycle guy sucks too.
Roach, yeah.
Roche. It just not good.
So he's a character I'm not really clear why they introduced. Because he only shows up for those segments and then you never see him again.
And then he acts a lot like Revolver Ocelot in MGS3, where it's like, you're pretty good. Peace. It's just like, okay, thanks.
Gosh, now I wish there were like weird first person moments where you could look around the screen and just see him.
It just does that thing with his hands, like, it's just like, why are you here?
Yeah, he's dumb. I mean, they have plenty of bad decisions in it, just like any other
But at least Cloud is sort of like, who the hell was that idiot? Yeah. Anyways, moving on.
I mean, and like, that's the other thing I like about the portrayal of Cloud, like, is he's not just pure sourpuss that you see in Advent Children, or sad guy with whatever he looked like in Kingdom's Heart or whatever.
Yeah.
Like he has, like, they give him layers to his personality, and they're layers that you knew kind of existed from the original game, because he has some goofy parts, like he has his squats are my favorite exercise parts, or whatever.
Let's mosey.
Like they I don't know, like I guess like at the end of the day it really is for Final Fantasy VII players, because they keep they had one mini game in it that I'm like, why did you guys keep this in? Why this is
Yeah,
the part I hated for the most. But then, like, after I
That's
failed
kind of
my
like-
third time, it just let me pass it. Like, they removed all the
cool.
crap
good.
in my way, and
So that was another thing that like the new fans just didn't get, was just like all of the mini games. They were just kind of like, they're like just like constantly mini games that I just did not want to do.
Yeah.
welcome
And I
to
was just
Final
like,
Fantasy
it's like-
VII.
I'm like, that was 7,
Yeah,
man.
like,
Like I went into 7
way
and I was
worse.
just like, this is so many mini games. I hated 7's mini games. I hated them. That was one of the things I dinged it on. And then
Yep.
like they were like, man, they were like, there's so many mini games in this thing, and I'm like, that's
Yep.
about right.
True life, yeah.
That's the true
There's a
experience.
quarter of the mini games in Remake
Yeah.
as there are in the original,
Yep.
man.
Oh my god!
And at least they explain things to you, and you get multiple
my
attempts at it
gosh.
instead of 7's. Here's how you march. Good luck.
Right. Go crazy. Oh, man.
Gosh, I don't. Well, just let me just talk about the systems for 7 Remake
Sure.
for a bit, if you guys don't care.
Sure.
Go ahead.
So I really like their new take on the materia system. It was
Yeah.
disappointing to me the first time I mastered materia and didn't immediately get a second one, but
Yeah.
having those tight constraints of just not being able to mass produce elemental or whatever that element add-on attack one is and things like that, I think really made their combat system very, very tight and interesting. And I feel
Yeah.
like fans of Xenoblade Chronicles may have some interest with this combat system. It's not quite the I can't remember the names of it, but in Xenoblade, you basically had 4 things you had to do to an enemy to win a fight. You had to like knock them down, launch them in the air, hit them back down.
Right.
And they were like,
topple.
yes,
Stagger or whatever.
launch.
yes.
Yeah.
And I feel like Final Fantasy VII has that, but it only has like 1 or 2 of those in it, right? Like,
Right. Like the stagger system and something else.
yeah, exactly. And you accomplish a lot of that with the materia, and it's most of the time it's less about what level you are and how upgraded you have, and more about how are you equipped and how are you handling this boss fight.
Right. Right.
Which I really enjoyed. There was like a couple boss fights, like Leviathan comes to mind. He has an attack that he will do near the end of his life that if you do not have enough hit points, he will wipe your party.
Oh, right.
So I spent like a couple hours the first time just failing it, and then said, oh, okay, I just got to do this later. And then came back later, survived through it, and then it was no issues.
Nice.
But I really, really love their take on the materia system, and I love that there are not 5,000 materias like there are in the original.
Yeah. Like you have 45 cure materia. It's like, no, I don't. No, thank you.
Like, I mean, the original, it's you have cure, you have revive, you have restore, or I'm sorry, it wasn't called cure, it was called restore. You had,
Right.
like, they had like 5 or 6 healing materias in the original.
Mm-hmm.
And like, if you wanted to accomplish a certain synergy, then you had to have like 5 or 6 materias kind of equipped in a certain way on this character and this character. And they kind of just simplified it and said, okay, you can have this many materias, and we're going to put I'm pretty sure the remake has more skills per materia than the previous.
It
may
seems
be
like it, yeah.
inaccurate. But I really enjoyed that updated system. I
Yeah.
really enjoy how all the characters play significantly differently. It's not just their limit breaks. It's if you move to Tifa, she's more about dodging and hitting quick, and then her ability is I can't remember what it's called, but you get your AP point up, you use it, and now her hits do more damage in battle, and she's faster.
Yeah. She's just uppercutting dudes.
Yeah, and then you use it again, and like on top of that, if you like once you build up your attacks with her, you can then choose to go down a level by spending it, and you'll cause like additional damage to the enemy's stagger bar, so it'll be easier to stagger if you use that.
Right.
I enjoy that Barrett has both long range and short range weapons. I'm not as huge fan of his short range ones, but they do a lot of damage, even if he is very slow in using them.
Yeah.
Let me think. Cloud is pretty, like, in a way he's cut and dry, but his attack is also like Barrett's specific attack to him is that he'll charge a shot and shoot it, and that varies per weapon that he has. No, that doesn't. That's always there. What am I talking about? It's been a couple weeks. But Cloud's is just a different mode where he doesn't move as far and does a lot more damage. And it says
and he has that cool parry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And honestly, like towards the end of the game, like the parry system with Cloud is like integral. Like I did not realize how important it was to have like steadfast block on him. Crap. Both the games are melting together in my brain.
Right.
Like I spent 52 hours in Final Fantasy Remake and then immediately went to the original. So it's
right. I've been using Cloud's parry a lot because so many enemies are so weak to it that you can block. There's no like parry window to it. It's just sort of like stand there and block in the one stance. And whenever an enemy hits you, you're just going to counterattack immediately, and it does a ton of damage. It's so worthwhile.
I mean, yeah. They have this one enemy late in the game that is it's basically roller skating around and incredibly fast. And that's how you almost immediately kill him if you can just catch him with one of those blocks.
Nice.
And they because they have that materia where you enable it and then you use the materia skill and it puts you in that stance and it'll do even more damage. So that was how you dealt with that. Like the late VR missions in the game, the VR arena missions are ridiculously hard, and you can go back to them with the chapter select, which is what I did. That's the specific battle I'm thinking of in there. But I wanted to mention the music too. I really didn't think they would have anything new to do with that old music because it's just been reorchestrated so many times. But they have it in here. It moves dynamically with the characters and the battles and out of the battles, which is super impressive. Like I've kind of been disenfranchised with orchestral scores for a while. It's nothing against an orchestra. It's just that a lot of composers fall in a rut of just doing the same thing over and over again. I mean, it's the same thing with rock bands or anything else. They'll stop exploring other styles, and for me, that just made orchestral scores kind of boring for the most part. But this kind of like made me believe in them again. And it's not even pure orchestral. They have plenty of like old cool like electronic takes on music too.
Well, and I think it's especially interesting with the score because it would have been really easy to just do what they've been doing for their live shows for the Final Fantasy concerts for the last decade and just orchestrate the Final Fantasy VII soundtrack and just kind of put it in the right places in the game, and that would have been fine. But each track has like 4 different versions. It's like the daytime one, the nighttime one, the in-battle one, or like the almost in-battle enemies are around one. It's like each one of those are so incredibly different in sometimes minor, sometimes major ways, but it's still the same track, but just kind of twisted and remixed in exactly the right way you want it to. And I think it would have been great if it was just, here's a big orchestral version of this song, the battle theme, but having a bunch of different versions of that just, I think, really, really makes it feel so much better. Yeah.
And another thing I loved, and I wish I had went back and looked this up and wrote down the specific moment to it, because it happened a couple times, but there's one I'm thinking of. But like, it literally ends a story scene, and the story scene kind of vaguely hints at something, and then the score kind of brings the theme that it's vaguely hinting on.
Yes.
And just puts a couple notes at the tail end, which is just obviously does nothing for new players.
Right. Yeah, but
in retrospect, thinking about this.
Yeah, but it's those little moments where it's sort of like, if you don't know it, it's still, hey, this track is really great. But there's just this little stinger at the end where it's like, yeah, that's right, that track's still good. You just get a little bit of it.
and they were in terms of characterization, like, so a friend and I were a little bit worried, like, Aerith's a little bit of a hustler, like in the original game, right?
Yeah.
And like we were worried they were just going to tone her down to innocent girl too much, but she uses a curse word in this. Like
she does, and it's such a perfect moment. Like I just ran across it, and when she does it, it's just like, that's the cutest thing ever. You're just the best. And like one of my favorite moments in this game so far has been your introduction to Aerith when you run across her and she's selling you the flower at the beginning. Like she's like, she's talking to Cloud and she's like, what are you doing? Where are you going? And he says, I'm involved in things, dangerous things. And her response is, yeah, I'm sure you are. Anyways, it's just like, she just could not care about this dude trying to be tough. It's so good.
It's, God, it, like having everything in this fidelity of graphics. I know there's plenty of art to be said about the visuals of the original and things like that, but now I don't think Zack and Cloud look exactly alike. So and I guess I'll just leave that statement at that. Like people who played both games will understand what I'm trying to communicate.
Well, and I think one thing that serves Remake so strongly in the graphics department is it's constantly zooming in on Cloud's eyes and comparing them to other people's eyes. Where they mention it pretty early on that it's like, oh yeah, the person who bathed in Mako, what's going on? And like it very much focuses on, these people have regular color eyes, except Tifa's are like a little too red. And then it's just very much like, look at Cloud's weird eyes, whoa! And that always looks really good.
Yeah. And like they take a lot of the story elements too from, is it Calm? Is that the first place you go after?
Yeah, Tifa's town.
Yeah. I think they take a lot of those story elements and they put them in this game in smart ways. Mm-hmm. They explain kind of the gap of time between Cloud and Tifa, I think, in an interesting way, and you can see her. You can visually see her thinking, that doesn't add up. Can we go talk over here?
Right. Cloud, a moment.
kind of going on, and like because you're with them every moment of the way, like you understand why she has not gotten her answers. Mm-hmm. Anyway, that sucks about the new players. That really bumps me out.
Yeah.
But like looking at it, I can see that they'd be completely lost on a lot of it.
But I think that's a good opportunity for a complete collection to say, like, this is the whole thing. It's vastly different from the original, but here's this brand new thing, and now it's like when Kingdom Hearts 3 came out. All right, now all these 15 games are out. You can play whatever ones you want. You can experience the whole, like, Phase 1 story. Like it or not, here it is. One box.
The other thing that kept shocking me about the game, and this is something else that I guess will not be for new players, is like the dialogue of the original translation that they chose to keep.
Yes. There's
a certain... We'll just say there's one character in the game who I'm fairly certain they didn't change a single line for. You will not have gotten to them yet, Boston, I don't think. Like Barrett, like he obviously has some lines that you did not expect them to keep in the game. And once I got used to his voice actor, if I can even call it getting used to it, that I kind of appreciated.
I think everybody else's voice actor, I think, does a really strong job. I think Barrett's voice actor, he is a very good... he's trying to get everybody to believe in his cause, and I think his voice actor does a really great job at like pumping the troops up and like trying to deliver this rousing speech, and I think it does really well. And when Barrett is like Marlene's dad, he does that really well, like the really quiet Barrett. It's just that kind of middle character where he's indecisive about which one of those Barretts he wants to be. I think that's when the voice actor gets into some trouble.
Yeah, I guess I'm just not fond of the overall style they chose for the voice actor.
Yeah.
Like, I think he does well within that delivery for the most part.
I mean, from what I heard, though, like, the lines that he has to say, and basically how he looks, and keeping up with what has already been out there for Barrett's voice acting, I feel like he's doing what they would have wanted, though. Like,
yeah.
Like if you look at Advent Children, the little bits of what Barrett was there, and keeping in line with that, along with the, like, if you're not going to change Barrett's dialogue, like the things he says, he's clearly a mimicry of a certain personality person,
Mm-hmm.
and they you either have to go along with it and just kind of keep him the same character, or you're going to have to heavily overhaul a lot of his dialogue.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they're, like, if you do it one way, you're going to upset a lot of people. If you do it another way, you're going to upset a lot of people.
Yeah.
So do you tone him down and upset that group of people, or do you stick with what was originally written and upset the other types of people? And I don't think there was a right answer there.
Well,
I can't think of anybody who's going to be happy, this is the perfect character we could make of Barrett, and everyone's like, yeah, that's exactly what I wanted. That was never going to happen.
And it's hard too, because he's supposed to be this charismatic leader of an eco-terrorist group. So, like, it's a hard role to write, and it's a hard role to act. And I think largely his new lines are good, and I think his characterization is, I think, a lot stronger than the original, at least up until the point I'm at. It's just a tough character.
Yeah.
I don't think, like, for when I played 7, like, a few years back for the first time, I remember being, I don't know what's the word, like, okay with Barrett, just kind of like, he's just a character. I didn't really like some of the aspects about him that I was just kind of like, this feels kind of bad. Like, I didn't like how he was being portrayed. And then, like, you get to the parts with Marlene, and I was like, oh, I like this better. And then you get to the part that nobody knew was going to see, but that big story part where it's just like all about him and, like,
his
everything
whole
about
background.
him. Yeah, I don't want to say where, but you get to there, and, like, that changed my opinion that flipped the switch from me on Barrett, like, completely, because I was like, okay, he's not just a character, he's an actual character, like a full character.
And I think you see a lot more of that in it's a lot more balanced with that, at least at the beginning of Remake, where Barrett is showing some concern about his family and his crew, and Cloud as he's entering the crew, and it feels a lot more balanced, as opposed to, here's this intense Barrett for the first half of this game, and then you get the backstory. It feels a lot more even.
Yeah, because it was definitely not even when I first played it. I remember being kind of like, this, he just feels like he's just here for comedy or whatever, and he doesn't feel like an actual person. Like, this is not a real person.
Yeah. And
then once I got to that part, I was just like, oh, he's actually a really, really developed person. I just didn't see any of it really, and besides the Marlene bits, but just they didn't really portray it that well.
Yeah.
In the beginning.
7 was good at doing that with a lot of the characters, though. Like,
yeah, you get to the part where they really explain all the characters later on. They just kind of get dropped on you at the beginning.
Yeah. Like Yuffie and Reeve in particular.
You can completely miss Yuffie.
Yep.
Yuffie's backstory can be completely gone.
That's
you can
true.
Skip it.
That's entirely true. And granted, Reeve is there are too many holes in that dude's.
There's a lot of holes. Yeah.
And it's cool seeing Reeve too in the Final Fantasy VII remake. Granted, I already know what he's up to, and no one else is going to know who the heck this guy is.
Right? They had to ask me about that too. They were like, why should I care about this Reeve guy?
It's like, I don't even...
They're like, they keep making him sound like he's up to... I don't understand. I'm
like, you won't even believe me if I tell you. Don't worry about it. Just play the second one.
I guess I don't know where to begin.
They even have like a 2-second, like... this is in the trailer. It's not a story plot spoiler. It's just a... surprise, here's Kate Sith for 2 seconds.
Oh, cool. That's
in
fun.
a CGI moment. Crap.
Nice.
I'm sorry. Did you not know that, Boston? Did I mess up?
No, I assumed he was going to be. I mean, there's so many of those like wink and nod things where it's like, huh, wink, huh? Look at this guy.
There's a ton of those.
Yeah.
For some reason, I thought that had already happened at the point you were at, but I guess not.
I don't think so. So I'm playing it. So one of my last topic here on Final Fantasy VII, because we've been talking about it for like an hour.
Yeah.
The amount of additional swearing in this game sort of sucks when I have a 3-year-old around. So like I have to play with one headphone in while I'm still taking care of her. So there are some of those like very quick story beats that is sometimes me yelling at her, don't feed Legos to the cat, it will hurt them, and then like something cool is happening on screen. So it might have already happened, but I could have been yelling at my child.
Have you gotten... Gosh, I've forgotten more of this than I thought I did. Has the deal with the plate happened yet?
No, I literally am walking across the rooftops with Aerith.
Okay.
So
for some reason I thought that was before then, but I guess
I think that's right afterwards. Yeah.
Basically, I think when that happens, they will have a big CGI cutscene, and you will see Kate Sith for 2 seconds, and that will be it.
Right.
Yeah.
Why did you include I guess you include that as
I had to explain what that was too, because they were like, "What was that?" And they're like, "That was random."
Don't worry about it.
Like, that's
welcome to the weirdest plot line.
Yeah, man.
Here's one of the
I don't know. There's a surprising number of those, Musim, for somebody who's brand new, who has no idea of like anything on 7. There's like so many of those little like wink nods to like old fans that new fans are just like, what is all these moments? Explain them to me.
Yeah. Like Final Fantasy VII now available on Switch.
Yeah.
Right.
I think Reed has a lot of good story stuff. Oh, I'm sorry. I can wrap it up.
And yeah, any last thoughts here? Because I feel like we've talked about this enough for now.
Oh.
Okay. I probably shouldn't have said it's probably one of my favorite games of all time. I'm not going to know that for a year or two.
That's okay.
But it's the first game in a long time that I have literally just played for 8 to 10 hours a day every day during a week. Like I have trouble sitting down to play a game for 2 hours right now. So I have a lot of love for this game, and I feel like through conversation here, it's been evidence that you probably should play the original if you hope to have any sort of that love. And I don't think the original Final Fantasy VII is the best RPG of all time by any means.
Right.
I think it is one of the furthest things from it. I think in context of the Final Fantasy VII of the Final Fantasy series, I think it's an incredibly weird one.
Yes. Well, and I'm glad to see that the remake is doing the same thing that Final Fantasy VII did, which was when the remake and the original came out, everyone played it and was like, you know what? I like JRPGs. What are the other ones that are around? And like Atelier Ryza is selling incredibly well. Like there's all these other RPGs that are out right now that are selling incredibly well, I think because there's this great halo effect around Final Fantasy VII again. And I think that's great. Yeah. Tell your friends about the show.
Okay. My browser just crashed along with my list. Hold on one second.
There we go.
So I also, after playing this, I really had a hardcore JRPG itch.
Mm-hmm.
So I went and started up Fell Seal Arbiter's Mark again.
Oh yeah, I just bought this because it was on super sale on Switch, right?
Nice. Yes. And that's the platform I played it on. This is the indie game by, I believe they're called Six Eyes Studio. I don't know if it did well or not, but I know they're working on a DLC for it for all platforms. So I'm looking forward to that. But the new game plus features on this game, like I don't have a ton to talk about on it, but it's they give you probably a dozen options to adjust things. So you can, like normally a map has enemies capped at a certain level. You can have it take that cap off so they can just be leveled up to wherever you're at now.
Nice.
They have a I can't remember. It's like a 3-tier deal on determining how often enemies will use healing items. You can determine which portions of your previous game you want to continue on to the new version. So that's just it's a game that uses all the goodness of Final Fantasy Tactics. Arguably one of the best RPGs ever made.
That's right.
Especially that system. I mean, that system was in Tactics Ogre 2, which is another fantastic game. So, and these guys, I think, did that system really well in this one. So I've just been kind of, rolling over everything as I've been hitting it, since my guys are absurd levels, and that's still a really good game. I think it's worth your time, especially if it's on sale. So
yeah.
And then last but not least, I've been playing a metric ton of Persona 5 Royal.
There you go.
Yeah.
I just finished Madarame's dungeon. I think I'm about to hit the story point where they acknowledge that I finished it.
Right.
So I am constantly, I know we talked about it last cast, all the new stuff they added to the game. I feel like it's still happening. Like,
yeah.
Every few days in game, I just hit a point where they say, oh, and surprise, we added this other thing to it to either make your life easier or to give you something else to do or whatnot. So I still have a lot of love for this. I believe, Mina, you said you were playing as well.
Yes, I don't want to take over your part too much, so I'm just going to try to hold back until mine. But I played Persona 5 on merciless difficulty mostly, and
okay.
I actually switched a little bit to hard because I found merciless to be too easy.
Okay.
So that's a confusing statement, I'm sure, if you've never touched hard difficulty or merciless. So merciless does, I think, either 3 times or 4 times weakness damage.
Oh, wow.
Oh, okay.
And it goes both ways. Both you and the enemy.
Oh, that makes sense why it's too easy. Okay.
So if you're going through certain parts of it and you have you get the jump on something, you are pretty much, unless you don't have the right things to knock something down, you're just gonna sweep everything. Just one shot,
right.
one shot.
That makes sense.
And so it got to the point for me where I was just kind of like, merciless is actually too easy for me.
Right.
And I want the game to be hard.
Right.
So I played merciless. Merciless on the bosses is an interesting situation because on the bosses they don't normally have like a weakness to exploit like that. So I play most of the game on hard because that's what, like, the trash mobs, that's actually hard.
Is there is there any bonus for weaknesses on hard? Okay.
No, hard's just hard.
That makes it way more difficult. That's really weird.
Right. But here's the thing. So, like, if an enemy gets a jump on you or you don't kill something because of whatever reason, merciless becomes dreadful. You'll get wiped. The monsters will sweep the floor with you. Like, it's incredible. You will not be able to handle whatever they throw at you. Or if you don't have the right party set up to handle the enemies.
Right.
And you just kind of get stunned by their first appearance. So, I pretty much switched the difficulty to hard for, like, most of the dungeon. I get to a boss, merciless.
Gotcha.
And my goodness. So some of the bosses are insane. Holy smokes. So, for example, like Kamoshida, the first boss, they changed some stuff about the bosses a little bit.
Oh, okay.
I don't remember if we talked. Did you guys talk about that in the?
I don't think you guys had gotten to the boss yet. I think you were in the dungeon.
I hadn't played last one.
Okay.
So.
Oh, right, because last one, me talking about it, like, you're like, okay, I'm buying this now.
Buying it right now.
That's right.
Right. So, so the thing is like, so that scene with Kamoshida where he's like gonna do his blinding shot or whatever he calls it, the super shot, the shot that the world feels or whatever. I don't know. Anyways, that particular shot, he actually calls particular students to come deliver the ball to him. That was not in the
interesting.
The first game.
Huh.
And like in one of the, and you actually either decide to whether or not to like knock out the particular student that's assisting him with the ball that's just basically like one-shots your team if you don't defend.
Right.
Or you have to attack him. And I actually felt a morality issue on Merciless, because on Merciless, the amount of damage you need to deal to him to like make him stop attacking you is like quite a bit.
Interesting.
Whereas like the amount of damage you need to do to that poor student is not a lot. And I felt really bad, but I was like, I tried to it was just like I can't take out Kamoshida's health fast enough, so I have to hurt this poor student. I'm not going to say which student it was, but I felt really bad. I was like, I know it's just a cognitive version of that person, but
still feels real bad.
It still feels real bad.
Right.
I forgot about that. I felt bad about that too. They changed. So in Kamoshida's dungeon, I didn't notice it as much, but in
they changed stuff too. The boss locations, the mini boss location, the Mara. It's not named Mara, but the thing that looks like Mara. I'm not going to say.
I didn't even
the Mara
realize.
Creature.
Gosh, I just don't absorb things. I don't remember anything like that in Kamoshida's dungeon.
So in Kamoshida's dungeon, the Mara Creature, because it's not slime.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
doesn't
okay.
have eyes.
I'm with you now. Yeah, that does
it's not,
look Mara-like.
It's more Mara than anything else. It's like part of Mara. Anyways, that used to be like en route to going up to the top. Like he used to be right there en route by the staircase as you climb up. You had to fight him there. I remember that specifically. I don't know why I remember that specifically, but he's no longer there. They have moved him elsewhere, where he's blocking a door to the seed skull things, whatever they're called. Skulls. I don't know.
I kind of like tracking those down too, by the way.
Yeah, I like it too. But they've moved the mini bosses to being in front. Like one of the mini bosses from every dungeon appears to have moved locations to now be blocking a skull.
Interesting.
The final skull of the dungeon, typically.
Gotcha.
So that's been moved. Some of the items and weapons and stuff have changed. Why I remember where why I remember where certain weapons and stuff were at in the dungeon, I'll never know. I don't know how I remembered these random things, but I went and opened up a chest and I was like, that's not the same contents from the original one. I know it's not.
I bet that's the benefit of editing live stream videos too, is that
that's probably
you get to see this thing 3 or 4 times.
Right, and I have to make sure I clip the exact spot where it's like, okay, this is, make sure that people can see where I collected the thing. But anyways, I have strange memory of where everything is in the game. They've added more areas to access in the dungeons. They've kind of moved stuff around a little bit inside the dungeons, or changed a little bit of the puzzles. Not like drastically, but they've changed like it a little bit.
I have found it fascinating where they put the different grappling hook locations in, and how they add like required sections to that, while they also make like optional sections, which I really kind of enjoy. Like I don't remember Madarame's dungeon very well, but that one, especially the second half of it, I think was like at least 50% different, like from what it was originally.
It's pretty different, yeah.
Like I didn't get annoyed while playing through his dungeon, which I feel like happened with it, but also I get Madarame's dungeon confused in my head with the teleport dungeon from Tokyo Mirage Sessions, which is a super annoying dungeon.
Right.
So that may be the problem. But
they added some stuff to like different parts of the dungeon that I think kind of smoothed the dungeon out a little bit more. And they've made really nice use of that grappling hook in certain areas. I really like how it's been added. And I think the thing that I admire the most about this game is, and I remember the complaint that people had about Persona 4 when they added Marie and Golden, where they just kind of felt like she was just kind of shoved in there.
Mm-hmm.
And suddenly important. Like, add her in. I feel like with this one, they've done a really good job at adding the 2 new confidants.
Yeah.
To the story, because I think it's really smart that they both are at the school. I think that's really smart because that's a lot more interaction, and I think like based on the roles that they were assigned when they came there, one of them's borderline like a a sports celebrity, and the other one's someone who's supposed to be super involved with the students because of the event that happened. I feel like they make a more natural implementation than Marie did, where she just kind of was like inserted and didn't really, like, if you didn't really talk to her or whatever, didn't really add anything, kind of just exists but not really a part of the group. Whereas these two feel like they've really melded themselves into the story. I think that's really, really good. And it feels like it was intelligently put in. They asked, like you said before in the last month when you talked about how there were more scenes where you could actually run into Haru and the other characters. They are way more in every single day. Like, you can see them traveling around a lot more. So I feel like
it is fun walking down the hallway and you see I'm just gonna forget everything. The investigator's sister, Makoto, like reading her newspaper.
Oh yeah, like trying not to watch you.
Yeah.
I think that was in the original. I feel like
she did that in the original.
Okay.
I remember recording an episode and having to edit because I slowly realized that she was following me.
Yeah.
Like, I remember seeing her in chairs and stuff, like trying to hide or whatever in different areas.
She's everywhere.
That's true.
I found her chasing me around in Shibuya. I don't remember if she was that diligent in the original one, but she was actually chasing me around in the Shibuya Underground Mall, and she also chased me around in just the Shibuya area where I was getting ramen or whatever. I don't remember what I was doing. So she was just chasing after me. I got to the pyramid. I have not gone into the pyramid properly to do the dungeon, but I have arrived at the pyramid.
Nice.
I've been introduced. That's how far I am.
Well, you're much farther. I mean, that's like the 4th dungeon, isn't it? Or the 5th?
Yeah, I already did the heist.
Okay.
The bank heist.
Oh, that one, right. I forgot about that.
So that one's changed quite a bit too, the layout.
Interesting.
I'm really expecting the pyramid one to be pretty different, just even after
I'm pretty excited. I'm pretty excited because I think the pyramid was I wouldn't say it was the worst because I already know which one's the worst, but the pyramid was it had a lot of repetition and not a lot of...
Yeah.
I felt like, the bank kind of showed the beginning of that repetition, and then you get to the bank. Oh, the bank has some cool things about it. By the way, don't spend money in the bank. All right? Don't do that.
Oh, okay.
I don't remember that from the original.
It's not. Don't spend money in the bank.
Interesting.
But anyway, don't spend money. You can and don't. I mean, I feel like that should have been obvious in a way. You should be
don't put money in the dungeon.
It's probably not a good idea to give money to the bad guy.
Right.
But anyways, you can, and apparently it does work for what the money is, but don't.
Interesting.
Now that I think about it, the layout of that dungeon is pretty drastically changed in a lot of ways. I didn't think about it until we started talking, but the bank was actually... the first area of the bank was pretty much the same. It's when you get to the second part of the bank that things get pretty different-y. I didn't even think about that. So I'm looking forward to the pyramid because I think that was one of the ones that I had, it was the second worst in my mind in terms of, this dungeon is dragging and it's not that interesting.
The outer space dungeon, too, was a little repetitive.
But it wasn't as bad as the pyramid. And then the boat was just the worst.
Yep.
The worst.
Very excited to hear about you guys getting to that. that point and seeing if what, if anything, is different.
Yeah, so
I don't. When did they introduce? Did they introduce the new town to you yet?
I'm not there. I'm literally.
Was it
I think-
Harakuju?
It's actually the what is it called? What's the name of the town? What is the name of the town? It was the one that you could visit in 4.
Oh, I don't
Can't remember. Can't remember.
I mean, maybe they did. Like, I got a new location, but I can't go to it. We just went to it with Ryuji and Nishima, whatever his name is. The
Nijima.
the fan site guy. Nijima. Is that Nijima?
The guy with the gun.
No.
It's an N, right? Like, it starts with an N.
Why am I blanking on his name?
Well, anyway, we can come back.
Mishima.
Mishima. M, not N. That's where I'm going wrong. Mishima. Yeah, it was like those guys and Mishima went out there.
Yeah.
But it was, I don't know. I haven't been able to go back. I'm still waiting for the area with the bar to be introduced. But,
Oh, right.
Okay, that's the new town. That's the new town.
well, no, they had a bar previously where you went to meet the reporter.
Yeah. The
I
nighttime
thought
area.
you meant the other bar.
Oh,
there's
okay.
two bars.
I don't
Never
know
mind.
anything about whatever new town they've added,
mind.
so.
Interesting.
But it's, I don't know. Real quick, like one of my favorite, I discovered my favorite addition to this game, which is a really minor thing. Like they've done some amazing and sweeping things that should all be commended. But this is something that all of the Personas and Shin Megami Tenseis have all needed. You can now sort the demonic compendium alphabetically by persona name.
There we go. That's the stuff. I like it. It's one of those features where it's like, that hasn't been in there. It's like, no, man, it hasn't. And it's the worst.
I know, like
There were so many new features to Persona 5 Royal. I mean, the thing is like I've gotten so far now, and they still introduce like something new, and it's all amazing. And by the way, there's a dart game, and if you really want to make your characters so overpowered that you can make hard seem easy, play that dart game.
Interesting.
You get good at that dart game, and you will make your team super powered. Have you unlocked the? No, I bet you haven't. Never mind.
I mean, I probably.
Nope. You haven't. I just realized it. You definitely have not. I remembered where it got introduced. It is hilarious, though. Oh my gosh, you need to play more of it. Get up to where I am right now, so we can talk about some of these crazy things. They added a new element to the battle that kind of like involves multiple characters, and it's both funny and awesome at the same time. It's optional to activate, but man, it like a lot of these new features has definitely made playing the harder difficulties actually easy. Like the changes to the guns, that's broken.
Oh, yeah.
That's really broken.
Yeah.
But I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I mean, you kind of just open, new enemy? Okay, let's see if guns work. Okay, it didn't, so that's fine.
Right.
Or it worked, and now they're dead.
Now
Right.
they're all dead.
Yeah, no, I'm
My gosh.
honestly right now where I'm at, I'm trying to remember what I have to do to let them, to have them let me hold more than 8 personas.
Advance the story.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's just a calendar thing.
Okay.
Yeah, Igor unlocks it for you after every upgrade on the full Arcana thing.
Oh, right.
So like when you reach the story beat where he's like, "I'll unlock more power," you get like 2 more Persona slots.
Gotcha. Yeah, I don't. So one feature about this that may have been somewhat present in the original, but I'm really noticing it this time, is they've added a lot. Like, so on the persona talking bit in battles, and I've seen a lot of reviewers kind of bash it and call the dialogue nonsensical, which I still kind of agree with. But now the battle opens, and I'm not going to remember anyone's name. The cat.
Morgana.
Morgana, like, straight up tells you, oh, this one doesn't like or this one's serious. Don't make any jokes. You might make it mad. So then that's
interesting.
Already a huge clue. Then when you say something, either A, they'll get those little, like, when you're doing a confidant bit and you say something correct and it'll do those two little symbols that go over the head that says, hey, you get
little
2 points
notes
in this. Now they have that for the talking to the personas. I want to say demons. It's not demons.
That's the other
personas.
series.
And they might have had that in the original one, but this one, it's like way more evident. And there are way more sound cues during that conversation, during other aspects of the game to give you a clue as to what is happening or what's going on. So like if you pay attention to the different sound effects going on, like that is communicating something to you.
Interesting.
It's really easy to but I feel like before when I used to try and recruit the personas, I had like a percentage chance to not get it right. Now with Morgana hinting strongly on what to say to the personas, I don't mess up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean I've hit almost every single one I've gotten.
Yep.
And I think the only one I messed up, like they gave me an item instead. Like it wasn't even
Oh, nice.
Wasn't that big a deal. But anyway, that's still I don't know that I have any more to say about it at this time, but I'm playing it a lot right now and enjoying it. It is granted I'm really partial to the music on this. So sometimes even when I'm not playing, I'll just have it on in the background because I love the music so much.
It's really good.
And they have
this is amazing. They've added way more time for you to do stuff too. Like before there was, I know the joke was always Morgana telling you to go to bed, but there is way more time to do stuff now. They've really added, there's no more after an investigation, you can still do stuff at home. Very early on, you can unlock the speed read book thing and the finish a whole movie in one sitting or appreciate movies more. Like that's very early on. You can get those things knocked out.
Where the heck do you get the speed read book? I've been looking for that.
Oh, it's so good. The speed read book is in the library, the school library.
Like it's always checked out when I go in.
I think it's because I've read almost every book from the library, maybe, or something. I don't remember.
Okay.
I finished, I remember the library girl or whatever talked to me and she was just she apologized for being rude to me or whatever. Or something like that, and then I could check out that book, and now in a single sitting, I finish every book.
So she just apologized to me recently, so I need to check on that then.
Check and see if that speed read book's there. I don't know what unlocked it, but it was either that or finishing a lot of the books there.
Okay, maybe I should just concentrate on the library books. I keep forgetting which book in my inventory is from the library, and I'm afraid
it's the ones related to to the personas, like the Great Thief, Arsene, or Zorro, or Carmen, or
interesting.
Kid.
Okay,
those ones are the school library books.
Good to know. Glad I asked. But anyway, this is all I've been playing, and so it's all you, Mina.
Pass the baton to Mina.
Holy smokes! Passing the baton is so strong now too because of that dart mini game. That dart mini game. Do not miss out on that. So I like this game, Persona 5. I'm not going to continue on with it, but I'm just saying this is the one that this is worth buying again. I would say it is very much worth buying again.
Yeah.
It's been a lot of fun. So outside of that, another game that I'm playing again, Dragon Quest 11.
Oh, yeah.
I'll start with that. I'm playing it on the Switch, obviously. If I'm going to play it again, I'm playing it on the Switch.
Yep.
And I guess I should talk about something that I didn't know about the Switch. And I don't know if this is just common knowledge and then I just didn't know about it. But I guess I'll talk about it real quick in case somebody out there has a Switch or possibly has a second Switch or whatever. But I found something interesting out about the Switch and downloading games to your Switch rather than buying them physically. Mm-hmm. So, and I'm going to do this by Switch A and Switch B. Switch A is the one that I've made an account that has all my purchases on. I'm buying all the games on Switch A, and Switch A's Nintendo ID account. So Switch B wants to play the games that Switch A has a hold of, but just like doesn't own them. If Switch A makes their Nintendo ID account on Switch B and logs into Switch B via their Nintendo ID, but not the shop, like just logs into the Switch itself,
right?
It can play all of its downloaded games, even though Switch A is the one with all the purchases that were made on it.
Oh, sure, right.
So Switch A could be handed off to whoever you want, like your child or significant other or whatever, and they can happily play all the downloaded games on any account on Switch A. And Switch B, as long as it's only logged into the Nintendo ID account, can play all of its downloaded games. The only thing that can't happen is Switch A's Nintendo ID cannot play at the same time the same game as Switch B's Nintendo ID's Switch A person.
Gotcha.
That's really confusing.
That makes sense. Yeah.
That's really confusing, and I don't know why Nintendo made it that confusing, but it basically means that technically you could have two Switches that are playing all the downloaded games, and you can even play the same game online with each other.
Interesting.
On this. Yeah, so like, for example, Animal Crossing, like I was able to log into both of the Switches at the same time on two different Animal Crossing accounts and play with each other.
Nice.
So I don't know if that will help anybody else out, but
it can be done.
It can be done.
Right.
And if that was too confusing, just look it up online, Google it. There's plenty of explanation that will explain all of it, but it can be done. I've done it.
Nice.
So, anyways, Dragon Quest XI. So they've made some changes in Dragon Quest XI outside of just the orchestral music being in there, and
like the 2D thing.
So the 2D thing, that's interesting, right? There was a crossbow minigame. There's a crossbow side quest thing in the first one.
That's right.
That's gone. They've purged that thing from the
That's
Switch
okay.
version.
That was sort of annoying to begin with.
So what that's been replaced with is a 2D area that exists. Even if you play in the 3D version, you get teleported to a 2D place. And in the 2D place, you actually go and visit the other Dragon Quest games in different periods of time where the stories have been altered and need repaired.
Wow. Okay. So like Final Fantasy Record Keeper.
Right. So
right.
For example, like let's say let's say this was Final Fantasy, because we were already talking about 7 earlier. So like let's say this is like we're in Final Fantasy 16, and we're gonna go, and all the worlds of all the other Final Fantasies got messed up. So then you go to Final Fantasy 7's world, and you go in there and you find out that for some reason the bombing mission didn't succeed or whatever, because of reason, and then you go and fix the reason so that way that world can continue on and create the proper story.
That's cool.
So they added that in, and that I believe is where all the crossbow rewards have ended up.
Interesting. That sounds way more fun.
That sounds way more fun than trying to randomly find these little crossbow marks around the world.
It was the worst.
So, I mean, that's that. There's also like there's just like a couple little changes, not like Persona 5 level of sweeping changes, but like I mean, it's all a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
and I'm having a good time with it. I mean, there's not that much to say. I couldn't talk about it as much as I did with Persona 5, but it's I really wish that they would just upgrade, the other versions to this version,
right?
Because I would not suggest anybody pay money to buy this again for this experience, but
right, because it's not as fundamentally different.
It's not fundamentally different,
right.
But it's like I could understand paying a DLC upgrade price, like $5. It'd be like $5 upgrade to the definitive edition. I'm like, that seems about right. I'd pay that.
But if you haven't played Dragon Quest XI before, it sounds like
this is the one.
This one is good, just as the PC and the PS4 versions are good.
Yeah. I think there's a little loss on the visuals, like a smidge loss. But if I'm gonna be super duper honest, Dragon Quest XI didn't look like the greatest, perfectest game ever. That you will miss the little bit of graphical loss here.
And man, that game is so good.
And it's good. I think the only complaint I think we all had with Dragon Quest XI was that the main character needs to start being voiced after this one.
I'm still okay with it, but I understand it.
It feels like there were so many emotional parts to this one that the character was just kind of deadpan the whole way through, and it's just kind of like the character could have had some more emotion put into it instead of just like this deadpan character walking through life.
Like Super Mario RPG figured it out, so like you guys can probably figure it out. I think like sometimes the silent protagonist works, but if you're gonna make like a story be super about a character and their emotional journey and their whatever, and involve their parents and sad stuff and emotional stuff happen, maybe the character needs to, especially when so much of the other voice acting is really good.
It's really good. It's really good. So it feels like it's a little pulled back. And the thing that makes it, and I know they did this as kind of a thing. They've done this throughout all the Dragon Quests. Like in Dragon Quest V, I remember specifically there's a point where you go and talk to yourself.
Yeah.
And the other you that you are not playing as talks to you.
Right.
Like actually talks to you.
Right.
Whereas you just do like basically ... and the other character's responding to you. You are responding to yourself. You're talking. So it's not like your character's mute. It's just that your character's implied to not really be
right. And
you can't hear yourself talking.
And like in 11, it always says like main character expresses disappointment. And it's sort of like someone else is like, exactly right. And it's like, okay.
I think sometimes the silent protagonist works, and I don't think it works anymore with what they were trying to do here.
Right.
I would really like the character to emote a little.
Yeah.
That's okay. Eric's still amazing.
Yep.
I don't remember there being an option to have Japanese voice acting in the original. I think that was added with this one, maybe?
I don't remember. Maybe it didn't. I don't remember. It's been long enough that I don't remember.
And so it's in here now.
Nice.
I know that for sure because I tried listening to a little bit of the Japanese voice acting. It's still good. It's still really good.
Yeah.
I do love how corny some of the English voice acting is.
Yep.
I think it just suits the tone when you have characters doing wacky voice acting that
way
I can
over the
understand. Way over the top, even more over the top than the Japanese voice acting.
Yeah.
A lot of that's actually subdued.
Right.
Surprisingly. Surprisingly subdued. So it's pretty good. I enjoyed it. So the next game I will talk about is Persona Q2, which I'm getting back into because I'm getting healthy again and I'm doing my Let's Plays again.
Nice.
Persona Q2. I'm playing on risky difficulty. I beat the first boss.
Hey, congrats.
Finally, right? Because I put that off and put that off. That was a challenge. I don't know if that was so much harder. That was harder than Persona 5 Merciless.
Wow.
That was legitimately difficult. Because the boss gets, and I don't feel like I'm spoiling anything for anybody at this point.
Yeah.
He gets like 2 carrot weapons. He gets like a giant carrot cannon thing that just like boom damage, and then he's got the machine gun spray damage that goes and does a lot of damage. I was so overwhelmed when I first arrived and died the first time. Spoilers, I died the first time. And then like I was like, that was intense, so let me try that again. I don't know how people get past this normally on risky difficulty. I don't know what it's like on an easier difficulty. I basically resigned myself to being like, okay, so you have to do something about those cannons. I don't know if you can just, soar your way into just ignoring the cannons and fight, because you only need to beat him. The cannons, the cannon arms or whatever, the carrots, they don't need to be destroyed to win that battle. You just need to take him out. And the best way to take him out on a hard difficulty is status effects.
There you
Poison
go.
is OP.
Yeah.
In Etrian Odyssey games,
Yep.
status effects. So you can land poison on him. Poison will not land. No status effects land on his weapons.
Sure.
So basically, the goal of the fight for me, the way I beat it, was poison him, and the poison, because I don't know if it's only on risky difficulty, only lasts like 1 to 2 turns, not very long,
Right.
but it's going to do way more damage than anybody in your team will. You do you do like poison, and then you have to kind of decide which weapon are you going to take out. I tried like a little bit of taking out the machine gun, because like my brain said taking out the machine gun should be better because it attacks multiple people.
Right.
But then I think the thing was like the cannon arm can just one shot like I tried to see like there's something like line guard or something like that where it kind of like aggroes attacks onto a character, and I tried doing that. Like I tried putting up a defense buff on him and lowering the attack damage, and then just kind of like, see if I can tank that hit and heal that character and try to survive and take out that cannon. Or not cannon, but I tried to take out the machine gun. That was not the way to go. Take out that cannon first. That cannon's got to go quickly.
Right.
So, and the reason why is because the machine gun always attacks the front row. So what I started doing was I started rotating the front row people to the back row and healing the back row, and like just kind of like rotating them around while I took out the cannon.
Interesting.
Sometimes I had people die, but ultimately it was like, get rid of that cannon ASAP, and then just continue tanking the machine gun. And that is what ultimately helped me beat that horrible dungeon.
Nice.
Horrible, nasty dungeon. And like, I don't know, like, this is probably not the experience people have on an easier difficulty, but like sometimes I would go into the dungeon, just like enter the dungeon, and the first encounter would like wipe out my entire party almost. And I'd have to just immediately limp out of there, like
Right.
after the first battle.
Wow.
And then I started going into the second dungeon.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem with the second dungeon, like if there's going to be a problem with the second dungeon, the problem with the second dungeon is it immediately puts out enemies that are weak to only Psi or Nuke.
Oh.
And the problem with that is that A, you don't have personas that have Psi or Nuke, so you can't just equip Psi or Nuke onto anybody.
Mm-hmm.
So that means you have to bring along the lowest level characters that just got recruited because they had been kidnapped this whole time. So I'm dragging along 2 incredibly low level characters into the next horrible dungeon that is so bad. I think I died just on a regular encounter in there and lost a lot of progress.
Oh man. That's the worst.
Oh. So my main motive then was just like, I need to find a persona out there that knows Psi and Nuke and equip this onto somebody else, because dragging along 2 low level characters, you basically need to be able to cover all the elements.
Right.
Like there's on risky difficulty, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You have to bring the elements with you, like all of them at all times, every element,
Right.
no excuse. Because you're just gonna get rolled by the monster somewhere along the way, unless you memorize and do what I do, where like certain so the map, certain encounters occur into different sections of the map.
Right.
So I have color coded the map where I'm like, okay, these square tiles all encounter these certain enemies, and I know that I need to have this party set up for these colors on the floor.
There you go.
To
That's the Etrian Odyssey way.
And so, like, but it's just easier to just teach, like, craft perfect personas. Thank goodness there is a website out there that can teach you, like, it has every Persona SMT game out there on, like, fusion results.
Nice.
And you can...
I love that website.
Oh my god. It is necessary sometimes. Okay. You really want to have, like, perfectly crafted Persona. I know there's, like, I know that there's, like, DLC or something in Persona Q2 where you could just download, like, a super powerful Persona, but that's missing the point.
Yeah, that's going counter to what you're trying to do.
I mean, it's funny, like, you always play these games. I didn't mention it on Persona 5R, but I'm pretty sure, A, I put it on easy, and B, I immediately got those free DLC characters.
Right.
So I could just run over everything.
That is one of the great things about the Persona 5 Royal, is that all the Persona 5 original DLC is free, and there are overpowered Personas you can just straight up download and use, and they're way strong.
Nice. Just start with the level 90 guy.
Yeah,
there you go.
Level 90 it up, and it's free. They don't even cost money the first time you summon them. They are straight up free.
Oh, man. So good.
But Persona Q2, despite what I'm saying, and despite the difficulty I'm playing on, I like it. And it's a lot of fun. So I've been playing that, and the next game that I played was... I guess I'll talk a little bit about Final Fantasy VI Worlds Collide, which is that Final Fantasy VI randomizer. It has been getting a lot of updates. If you're really interested in a randomizer, one that's being, like, they are taking feedback. I mean, I remember I suggested some things about things that I didn't enjoy about the randomizer, and the person behind the randomizer pretty much went to work immediately on fixing those problems within 24 hours. Wow. So it's a well taken care of
actively developed
randomizer. Actively being developed. Yeah. And I mean, it was something that I was complaining about because they've been, like, randomizing bosses. So now bosses can appear in different locations of the game.
Oh, okay.
And so some of that had a little bit of bugs. The one boss that I really did not like the boss was called Chattanooga.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't remember what that boss was, it was the portrait boss that transforms between a girl and a demon. And
right.
A horrible thing about that boss is it is undetermined how long it stays in either form. And it can change at any point in time, it feels like it. And so it could be transforming into the demon, and you've queued up an attack. Like, it transforms into the demon, which is the one you're supposed to attack. You queue up an attack, and then it does, like, a bunch of damage, and then it transforms back into a girl before your attack goes off.
Right.
And that can totally happen. And that is super annoying. That is horrible.
Yeah.
And the developer behind it has modified and fixed it so that way it takes its time a little bit in the form, so that way it's no longer just like, I feel like being a demon, I feel like being a girl, demon, girl, just constantly jerking you around like that. He's fixed it. Nice. So it kind of idles a little bit. It's a really good randomizer. If you like Final Fantasy VI, or if you just want to try out a randomizer, I recommend it. And let's see, the next game that I played, and I played a little bit of it, is Trails in the Sky. So I'm getting back into this game. I understand why this game has such a cult following with the game. I think there's a little bit of a bar of entry when you go into like a Persona game, where it's just kind of like the first 4 hours of the game is basically an anime.
Yeah, anime tutorial.
Mm-hmm. like you're just gonna have to, like, accept the fact that, this is just what Persona is. You're just gonna have to sit down and relax for 4 hours before you get to actually play.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just what it is. And so with Trails in the Sky, I feel like there's a little bit of a bar of entry of, like, I think most of the time when we play an RPG, we kind of expect there to be like this big event thing that kind of happens and you set off to your adventure. Trails in the Sky wants to take its time.
It sure does.
It's not ready for you to just go like, oh no, a big thing happened. People died. You need to leave the village now and go adventure. Take out the big bad. Like, this one, it wants to build lore. It really wants to build story, and it really wants to set the chess pieces down on. Like, you can't play chess yet. We are still setting the pieces down one by one. Please enjoy the process of setting pawns. Okay, so that's kind of what Trails in the Sky is, and I've come to accept it, and I kind of am enjoying it once I've accepted that that's how it is. And it's kind of cool because like I think a lot of the times when I get into an RPG, you kind of get introduced to the systems and the way that the game's going to be played, and you just kind of get into the mode of, I understand what this game's like. In this game, I have gone on a quest to stop a creature from stealing vegetables. I have gone on a quest to relight some lanterns and remember some codes.
Good old JRPG stuff, fighting rats.
I've gone on a quest to find some lost children. I've done a crime scene investigation. I have I've been doing things that are just kind of like, this is a fun romp into doing all kinds of weird different-y things where it's not like the I'm going from linear A, B, C, D, E kind of steps. It's like, I know I'm going to A1, A5, A3. Like, I'm not taking like a direct path anywhere.
Right.
And it just kind of like sprawls. And as it's sprawling, all the NPCs in town are going about their lives and doing their own things, and they say different things, and like, so like the characters in the town are basically living out their lives and talking, and they can all be missed. You don't have to talk to all these characters.
Right.
So it really feels like this was crafted by a group of people that really wanted to tell like a story and just kind of like really get you kind of exploring on your own to do things. Now, I haven't gotten very far, even as I've been saying this, but I've enjoyed it, and I can see why the people who really like this game really like it. 'Cause that's kind of a unique thing to have, like, development in just a town. Just like, I don't know if this is going to be the whole story. I don't know if this town's going to be I thought this was just going to be step one, regular town you start out in and you move past it and you never come back after a certain point. But it's like the town is developing its own story, and it's interesting how like the pieces are coming together slowly on like characters that I've met, and things that they're up to are intersecting and weaving back into what I assume is the main story plot line. For all I know, this ain't even the main story plot line. But anyways, like, everything's just kind of slowly weaving, and like these random characters I didn't expect to ever re-enter the story are coming back in, and it's just kind of like, this is like they are actually living their own lives and doing their own thing.
Right.
But they're part of the story. So it feels really cool. I see why people like this game. And so the last game I'm going to talk about is the remake Trials of Mana. And I think when I first played Secret of Mana, I think I was pretty negative about Secret of Mana.
The remake?
The remake.
Yeah. It wasn't good.
And I've narrowed down a lot of the reasons why I didn't like the remake, and I think the thing is like, some parts of the remake I didn't like just because they were badly executed in the remake. But the one thing that I think I didn't like in the remake, and I probably still wouldn't have liked in the original, was the battle system. am not too fond of the Secret of Mana battle system.
Right.
And honestly, I see Musum nodding his head.
I mean, do you guys remember when I bought the collection and I tried really hard to play, and at a certain point I'm just like, this is an action RPG where I have almost no defense. Like, I don't want to deal with this.
Right.
I could not, like, it doesn't matter if it was a remake or the original. I was never going to get into that battle system. There was just no way. And unfortunately, like, I think when it comes to video games, I don't think there's anything that can just make you, like, completely tune out of a game. But I think if, like, the majority of the thing that you have to do in the game is unpleasant, the game is not going to be pleasant.
Right.
So, like, in like a game where, like, it's battle centric, that battle system needs to be satisfying, or you're going to have a problem with the game. Same as, like, if a visual novel's story is terrible,
right,
I don't know how that's gonna. I don't know how you're gonna enjoy the rest of. Like, it's so much of the game. That's like, it's so much of it. So, like, the element that's going to be seen the most needs to be good for you to enjoy the game. I feel like that goes for any game.
Right.
And I'm sure back in the day, I would have probably been okay with Secret of Mana. I probably would have been like, yeah, this is fine. But in 2020, I cannot stand Secret of Mana's battle system.
Yeah.
And that's a shame. But what I do like, Trials of Mana. I have to be careful because I almost said Trails. Trials of Mana. Its battle system is so much better. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of positive I can talk about Trials of Mana. So I'm saying this to the people who played. If you played Secret of Mana and you were just like, I don't like it. I don't like the battle system. I cannot get behind that. Trials of Mana is not like that at all. That's like saying Persona 2 and Persona 3 are the same. They're very
right.
huge jumps and leaps. Right. And if you look at Persona 2 and Persona 5, it's even bigger. But, like, so Trials of Mana, it has an interesting start because it has kind of like it's got kind of like the Octopath Traveler sort of start where you pick your character out of like a lineup of like there are other RPGs like that, but you pick your starting character from a list of 6 characters, and then you also pick your 2 companions. Mm-hmm. And you kind of those are the 3 characters you're going to play with the whole game. So the other 3 are just you're not going to be able to have them in your party. So just you pick the 3 that you absolutely want. The main character you pick gets like the most story development that you see, and it's kind of they're essentially the main character. They get all the talking bits, but the supporting cast also gets talking bits, and some of them have more talking bits with certain characters combinations.
Oh, okay.
So some of them have like really deep conversations with certain characters, especially if they're opposed to each other in ways. So the thing was I first made a group of characters because I wasn't paying attention. I was just like, I'm just going to pick whoever I like. I didn't read their story backgrounds or anything. I picked these 3 characters, and I found that the 2 characters had a lot of dialogue with each other.
Okay.
A lot. Like, and I was like, wow, they have so much dialogue. But the thing was I really didn't like that team I made. Because reasons. I don't want to say because it's kind of spoiler. Anyway, so I ended up switching to a different group of characters. There is way less dialogue between these characters. But it's not like they don't have it at all. It's just like the 2 characters had like tons of dialogue together because they had kind of motivations that similarly lined up, or they would have interacted in the area that they were in. So they had like a lot going on between them. And I understand that this happens with different character pairings or whatever. And then there's NPCs that treat you differently depending on who is in your party. And you learn different abilities depending on who's in your party or even who's not in your party. If people are not in your party, sometimes you learn things because of that.
Interesting.
the game has a lot of good and neat bits. I can truly see replay value being in this game. Like,
yeah,
especially because New Game Plus carries over literally everything. Everything.
That's cool.
So, like, let's say you got your one character level 70 and you're like, that's cool, but I want to play this game again with these other characters. But then you're like, you know what? I really like that one character, though. So you bring that one character along. You can have a party of, like, the 2 level 1s or whatever, and the level 70 that has all the gear and comes along with you.
Right.
I mean, that's what you can do. You can do that. So there's a lot of good I can talk about the game. So I feel like I need to say at least some of the bad. Be real honest.
Right.
I am really glad there's an option to turn on Japanese voice acting.
Specifically for Charlotte.
Oh my god! I'm glad you said that.
The worst localization choice I have seen in probably 20 years.
So you have been playing?
No,
you've seen it?
I have seen it all over Twitter because everyone's like, "I'm starting Trials of Mana. This looks really great." Oh my god, Charlotte!
Yeah, so
it's terrible.
If you're not familiar, Charlotte talks the way that a parent would baby talk a small infant.
Yep.
And I will give you, like, the smallest sampling right now. I don't want to do the whittle thing with the
Yeah.
I cannot handle that.
It's the
that
worst.
That cannot be the dialogue that I have to hear, like, the entire game. I would lose it. I cannot endure
So when they localized the Super NES one for the Mana collection, they did that to her text, and everyone was like, okay, well, they're not going to do that for the voice acting. Whoops. They totally did.
It's so bad.
They doubled down on it.
So thank goodness there's so if you picked Charlotte to join your party, and I can understand why, you're like a healer, support caster, like that sounds great to round out your party. And if you cannot handle the baby talk, and I understand that if you can't, there's a Japanese voice option that makes her sound just completely normal.
Yeah.
I think some of the other characters have it to a lesser extent. Like, I don't know why. Oh, I do know why. So, like, Angela was the character that I picked to start out with. She's a mage. And she has how do I put this? A preppy Valley Girl accent.
Okay.
It's not super excessive, but it's there, and sometimes it's a little much.
Right.
She can sound like a pretty, and I understand why, because her characterization kind of gives her the outlook of, like, okay, she's like this sheltered princess who gets, like, she's pretty, and I guess that's the voice we're just gonna give her. But then, like, it comes at contrast to a lot of the things about her where she's been trying to learn magic, but she can't. Her mother doesn't seem to love her, and she's just been lonely and kind of just pulls pranks on people and acts a bit of a tomboy and stuff. And, like, that's at odds with kind of her voice acting a little bit, because it comes in, like, it just feels like she sounds like she's like a stuck-up snob who doesn't, I don't know.
Yeah.
Who's just kind of like only cares about, like, the finer things or looks or whatever, but that's not really what she is. She's just really lonely and wants to be loved by her parent, and just trying to learn magic, and that's kind of at odds with her voice acting. So I don't love it.
Yeah.
It's not as bad as Charlotte. Charlotte makes me I cannot endure.
Yeah.
But, like, then the one that I don't understand why her voice acting is like this. And I've come to I really want people to understand that I don't think that it's the fault of the voice actors.
No.
Because none of this, like, 90% of the time, if not more, it is not the voice actor's fault if you don't like the voice acting.
Yeah.
It is the voice director. The voice director is the one that that needs to direct them to do the voice acting, or they've directed them to go in a direction that they do, or somebody not the voice actor gets to decide this.
Yeah.
They don't get final say in how to voice a character. They are doing their job. So I don't blame the voice actors. There's the other girl, Reese, I think her name is.
Okay.
The Valkyrie looking girl. Her delivery is kind of robotic and kind of like
monotone.
I don't want to say it's like a monotone, but it's not like a monotone as in like a dry delivery. It's just kind of like imagine like a Holy Knight Paladin or whatever talking, but is always set to Holy Knight Paladin talking mode.
Gotcha.
So that's like her one mode that she sticks to. Sometimes it deviates a little and she gets a little emotion, but like it's just kind of like, oh no, we need to find my brother. Oh no, we need to like.
It's like straight out of the 90s, where it's like they've got this one speed, and that's where they lie.
And it sounds really weird, and just kind of like you can have layers and elements to your character,
right?
And like the thing is like, so you would think to yourself then like, okay, so maybe like all the voice acting is bad, and it's not, because I have the thief in my party. His name is like Hawkeye.
Mm-hmm.
He's got pretty decent voice acting.
Nice.
It's pretty great. He's got all kinds of emotions, like on battle emotions, off battle emotions. Like it's just like he has, you know, moments where he's slick, sometimes where he's just like he's upset and devastated or frustrated. He goes through everything, and it's just kind of like he's good. I like him. I like his voice acting, but it's at odds with the rest of the party sometimes. And I'm just kind of like that's kind of strange. Kevin is like a beast boy who transforms into a werewolf thing at night or something. I don't quite understand everything. It's pretty awesome though. He's pretty great. Now he speaks in broken English, but it works for him, you know, because he's not human. He's like beast. So
right.
He'll say things in kind of like fragmented English, but I'm okay with it. It sounds right.
Right.
It works for him. And Duran. He's supposed to be the Knight Paladin, and he's pretty good too. So I don't understand why the guys have pretty decent to pretty good voice acting, and all the girls have like some problems.
Yeah.
That we got to work out. Charlotte being the biggest, and I suppose if you're okay with the baby talk, then it's whatever.
Yeah.
But it's constant though.
It's rough.
It's constant, and I understand why people were upset about that. But yeah, the gameplay is really interesting because it's got like the main character has their own story, and then there's obviously the rest of the story. So it's kind of like, I didn't play all through Octopath Traveler, but I also think of it like Dragon Age Origins or whatever, where like you have like your own your character starting story that like weaves back into the main story at parts.
Right.
And it seems to do the same thing here. And the other thing I don't like, I guess this is very important if you plan on playing Secret of Mana. The world likes to close behind you a lot.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know how, like, this surprised me to the point where I was like, I need to start all over, because I was just like, I'm sure at some point the whole world has to open back up, because otherwise a lot of these missables would drive people insane.
Right.
But if you are doing something in an area and you're like, I want to progress the story a little bit, maybe make sure that you've exhausted everything you want to get done in that area, because you might close behind you and then you might be frustrated.
Yeah. Right.
So I mean, exhaust the area, and And sometimes the world will open up a little bit, and it's like, you can come back to this area. And when you come back to that area, you might want to scour around and look everywhere and go beyond where the game is wanting you to go, because there are things that you can pick up. And then, because sometimes when you leave that area the second time, the world closes behind you again, and you can't go back to that area anymore, and you have no way of getting all the stuff there.
Right.
So I think that's frustrating to me, because I don't understand. I understand story-wise why they want to do it. I don't understand why, in the context of, I want to be able to access all this stuff right now.
It feels like a very old school, like Super NES era design choice.
Right. And some of it doesn't even make sense, because like some of it's like, there's nothing blocking me from returning, except that my characters are just like not going to ask to go back.
Right.
So like there's a boat that I get on, and I get off the boat, and like there's no reason why the boat can't travel back except reasons. And then there's like a cannon that I shoot myself into that I can go from place to place, except once I come back from the cannon, it's like, yeah, we can't shoot you back over there because there's no explained reason why.
Right.
We're just not going to let you go back. So that's kind of frustrating. And the biggest reason why I point that out is because there's like these collectible cactus things that unlock things in sort of a stamp thing. Like the more cactuses you collect, the more stamps you get. And you unlock things like double XP, prices in shops go down by 10%, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Really cool features that sometimes, because you take the journey to the next area, it's like now you can't go back and grab 5 of those cactuses.
Right.
They're all locked up behind you until maybe, I don't know, maybe an hour, 2 hours, 5 hours. I don't know when we're coming back there. We may never come back there. What do I know? I'm level 20 and I still haven't been allowed to come back there.
Right.
So I mean, like there's like that's something that I've got a complaint about, but it's just kind of like, I've learned now to exhaust the area.
Yeah.
I didn't pull up a guide, but what I did pull up was, I pulled up something that says you should have X amount of cactuses at this point. And I was like, okay, that's what I'm keeping track of. Does my amount of cactuses match up to this? You should have this many cactuses. I don't want the game to I don't want a guide to specifically tell me where to find the cactuses, but
you just want like a non-spoilery checklist.
Yeah, just like, you should have 11 cactuses right now.
Right.
So that's what I've been doing. I like it. I like it a lot. I could see myself even playing it a second time, despite what I sounded like complaining right there. I have been playing it on the hardest difficulty, but some other things that I find rough about the game. I think I'm about to unlock the ability to change classes. I think I'm nearing that, because it's getting to the point where I'm like, I should be able to do that. So like there's characters can only learn certain things or spells or abilities. But the other thing is sometimes they can't unlock things until you hit like a certain story beat. So not only do you need to unlock it through skill points, but you also need to unlock their abilities via story beats, and they both need to line up at the same time. And the thing is like, you can kind of fill out all of their tree, but I imagine that like distributing all your points like this early on probably affects the amount of skill, because like the skill points aren't going to be refunded back to you. You're going to have to keep using. So I'm kind of like a little leery about spending skill points at the moment.
Right.
I'm just kind of thinking to myself, like, once I unlock these classes, I might not want to have wasted all my points on different trees.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit of a downside. The game has a lot of nice features built into it, like the ability to change what buttons do what, like a complete control remapping.
Ooh, nice.
Which I'm really happy about, because whenever a game has like more action RPG sort of type elements, sometimes you want certain buttons to be mapped in a certain way.
Yeah.
You don't want the jump key mapped to the B key, because you want maybe like your light hit to be the B key and your strong attack to be the A key, instead of jump being B, X being the strong hit, A being the weak hit, and Y being roll. And then sometimes you're just like, I hate that map layout. I would like to change that, please. So it has that. You can change the difficulty at any time. You can change it anywhere between, it even allows you to hit beginner difficulty if you want and change out of it. Beginner is basically like, even if you die, you get revived.
Oh, immediately.
Nice. So it's basically the complete safety mode where it's just like, I'm just here for the story.
Right.
So that's good. I always appreciate, despite me playing games on like the hardest difficulty, I really appreciate when games have that for other people, because I do not think people should always play things on the hardest difficulty. I think they should play it at whatever speed they like.
Yeah.
To enjoy the game.
Yeah.
So I'm really glad that they have that. I mean, all in all, it has like a lot of nice features. I don't know how much of this was the same as the original, but it feels like this game feels so much better than Secret of Mana in many different ways. So I feel like if you're the type of person who is just like, I really did not like Secret of Mana at all, so I'm not going to play Trials of Mana, I think you should just give like Trials of Mana just a look.
I think there's a demo out too.
Play the demo.
Yeah,
I think it's worth soaring into it, even if you hated Secret of Mana.
Yeah,
and I can understand why someone it has more story than Secret of Mana to begin with. Like I wouldn't call Secret of Mana to be like a really epic, huge tale. It's pretty formulaic, whereas this one has quite a bit more story, a lot of more moving parts going on, and it's I think it's worth even replaying. Right. So I mean, if you're wanting an RPG that you could play multiple times, this might be your calling. It has something interesting in it, and I don't think this was. I'm pretty sure this wasn't in the original. So like I think in the original, when you opened up treasure chests, it did like a little roulette wheel of what you could get.
Yeah.
I don't know if that. I think I've seen gameplay footage, and I assume that that's how that works. And this one, you get something called item seeds, and the item seeds you take to a planter box, and you plant the item seeds, and then it does like it randomizes what you get. The more seeds you plant, the better your gardening skill gets, or whatever.
Oh, okay.
And the better items you get as well.
I feel like this is Odin's Sphere now, is what you're describing to me.
Yeah.
But so like I guess like the thing is like I haven't gotten far enough to see how good the items get, but I've been told that the items get really good the more you keep planting the seeds, and it's just kind of it only supplements your adventure. It's not necessarily a required thing. It's just kind of like, I don't know, I guess this is a way of making that spinning wheel thing that was in the original one like I guess better, so that way you don't have to sit and wait all the time for that spinning wheel. You can just like mass produce these things like
right
pretty much instantly. You just go to the planter box, and it's also less of an RNG, I guess, in a way, because as you upgrade the planter box, you stop getting the lesser items and you start getting the better things.
Right.
As I understand it. So it I guess it feels a lot better this way. I'm not sure. I don't know. I didn't play the original one. I also don't know how the battle system was in the original one, but this one feels good.
So
yeah.
I like it.
I played a little bit of the original last year when they released it.
Okay.
And that's kind of how I determined that as much as I love the aesthetic of the Mana games and the music of them, I don't like playing them. But
right.
The original, the villain of Trials of Mana is dynamic depending on your team composition.
I see.
And the combat for it was very, very similar to Secret of Mana. So
the combat in this one's different from Secret of Mana in terms of like the number one, just like I felt Secret of Mana was a bit clunky, and you couldn't like combat bosses very well. You were kind of like glued to the ground a lot.
Yeah, you didn't really have the ability to dodge, and the block was basically useless, and it was a lot of fighting by attrition
enduring
or luck.
Hits.
It felt like.
Yeah. I did not enjoy that. I hated that.
Yeah.
And in this one, you have rolling, you have jumping, that you can jump over things. Like the ground markers kind of like display very well where you need to dodge. The monsters are giving way more clues of like, hey, the monster looks like it's gonna do this attack, so you have like way more ability to react to things. You have abilities that kind of give you invincibility frames. Magic casting's interesting because I'm playing as Angela, the magic caster. I've learned that like they've added basically Hot Wheels, like, or not Hot Wheels, hotkeys to every like to like manage, so that way instead of like always being in a scroll wheel like how Secret of Mana was, you can kind of like hotkey certain things and attack faster and smoother.
I do not like the menu systems of the originals. Like, I'm sure they evoked nostalgia for everyone seeing that wheel come up, but
I'm sure.
And it got better in like some of the DS games. Like Children of Mana, I feel like they did that scrolling wheel much better than they did in the Super Nintendo games. But
right. I feel like this game has really hit the spot for me where it's just kind of like, this feels like a modern version of the Mana game, where it's like, this is something I could recommend to someone, and that I'm enjoying. And whereas I'm being perfectly honest, I hated the Secret of Mana remake, and I'm not sure I would have liked the original one either, based on the combat. And you're right, because I believe that the villain for Angela is the same one as Duran. I believe they have this same villain, and I think that's why they have a lot of more conversation between each other if they're in the party together, because they have a lot more. The same villain has been ruining the lives of his people, but in another way, her people have been ruining his people's lives. So like, and this isn't like deep cut into the story. You're gonna find out about this like minute 1 of the story. This isn't like spoilers,
right?
So like, they have a lot more to say. He has a lot more to say about her. He seems to be kind of I wouldn't say, he doesn't seem to trust her, and he sounds kind of like a bit bitter at her and everything that her, country has been doing. And it, reasonable. I mean, her people are going on like a war,
right? And
his people don't want to. So reasonable. I think it's really good. I think they've done a masterful job at updating a game that I haven't played, but I assume that it's been updated because it feels like a game that could have been made in 2020 rather than one that's just been remastered. Whereas like, I felt like Secret of Mana was like a 1-to-1 experience of like, they've just upgraded the graphics and they've made no hard changes to anything about this game at all. And for better or worse, it's either going to be great for people who are nostalgic for it, or it's going to be really bad for people who hate this battle system because it's very what it was.
Right.
This one feels like they've modernized. I didn't play the original, so I don't know like how well tacticsy were the bosses. But I've been like dodge rolling and jumping over effects and like
this may be inaccurate, but I really don't think the original had jumping or dodging. I may be wrong.
I've been doing combos. I've been doing like air combos and knockbacks. I've been doing like all kinds of like fun things, and I'm just like, that did not exist in the Secret of Mana. That did not exist there. So that's what I'm comparing this to in my mind. I don't know how much of the game's going to be different for people, but I would say like, give this one a shot, give the demo a shot and see if you like it. Cause I think it's worth giving it a shot because I think they've done I'm told that the same team developed both, but that can't be true in my mind. How did the same team develop both?
Yeah, I don't know.
So I don't know if like maybe they were given different direction this time around, because I don't think this was made by Square, or the remake wasn't made by Square. I think it was like outsourced to some other company.
Yeah, I don't know.
But it's really nice. And that, I mean, that's all I have to say about Trials of Mana. So, Boston, what have you played?
We're way over time, so I've got to move on to releases here. Let's talk about releases for May 2020. Borderlands Legendary Collection comes out on the Switch on the 29th. That includes Borderlands 1, 2, and pre-sequel. And Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition comes out on Switch on the 29th. That is our episode. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening. Musin, where can we find you?
You can find me at jbaudio.net and also look for solos by 66 Games on Steam.
There we go. And Mina, where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitch or on YouTube under Mina KO Rocket.
You can find me e1m1.com, patreon.com/e1m1. The ones are numbers for the both of them. Thank you very much for everyone for listening. We'll see you next month. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.